In the heart of the untamed American West, a name whispered in both fear and awe echoed through the canyons and across the plains: Deathwind. This wasn't just a man. He was a legend, a phantom of the frontier whose story is etched into the very soul of the wilderness. But who was the real man behind the myth? What forged a figure so deadly that his very name became a synonym for the biting, lethal wind of the high country? Today, we peel back the layers of time to uncover the life of the man they called Deathwind. His story begins not in a flurry of gunfire, but in the quiet, unforgiving solitude of the mountains. Born Thomas Kane, he was orphaned at a young age, left to fend for himself in a world that offered no quarter. It was the wilderness that became his parent, his teacher, and his crucible. He learned the language of the forest, the subtle shift of a branch, the faint track of a deer, the silent warning of a predator. He learned to hunt not just for food, but for survival, mastering the long rifle and the bow with a skill that seemed almost supernatural. He could move through the densest woods without a sound, a ghost in the trees. But the wilderness wasn't empty. It was a contested land, a place where cultures clashed and survival was a daily battle. Thomas Kane's first taste of real conflict came not from animals, but from men, trapped between expanding settlements, displaced native tribes, and ruthless gangs of outlaws. He learned a brutal lesson. To survive, you had to be more dangerous than whatever was hunting you. His first legendary encounter was with the notorious Black Creek Gang, a band of cutthroats who had cornered him, believing him to be an easy target. They were wrong. In a blizzard that howled like a banshee, Kane used the storm as his ally, picking them off one by one, a phantom in the swirling snow. When the storm cleared, only he remained. The lone survivor, a half-frozen trapper, could only stammer one word to describe the force that had annihilated the gang: Deathwind. The name stuck. From that day on, the legend of Deathwind grew with every passing season. He wasn't a lawman, nor was he an outlaw in the traditional sense. He was a force of nature, a self-appointed guardian of the balance in his mountain domain. He protected innocent settlers from marauders, guided lost travelers through treacherous passes. And sometimes he dispensed a harsh, swift justice to those who brought violence and greed into his world. His code was simple, written not on paper, but on the land itself. Respect the wild, protect the innocent, and show no mercy to those who prey on the weak. Stories of his exploits became campfire tales. They said he could track a man across solid rock, that he could shoot a pine cone off a branch from 500 yards in a crosswind, and that he could speak with the wolves. One famous tale tells of how he single-handedly defended a small mining encampment from a much larger, better-armed force of claim jumpers. For 3 days and nights, he waged a one-man war, using the terrain to his advantage, creating diversions and striking from the shadows. The attackers, who had expected an easy victory, found themselves hunted, demoralized, and eventually broken by an enemy they could never see. They fled, telling stories of a vengeful spirit that haunted the hills. But what was the cost of such a life? The life of Deathwind was one of profound isolation. The very skills that kept him alive also set him apart from the world of men. He was a man who knew the harsh beauty of a mountain sunrise and the cold embrace of a winter night far better than he knew the warmth of a handshake or the comfort of a community. Could a man who lived by the rifle and the knife ever truly find peace? There were rumors of a woman, a settler's daughter he had rescued, with whom he shared a brief, fleeting connection. But his path was a lonely one, and the world he inhabited was too dangerous to share. The weight of his reputation was a heavy burden, attracting challengers and enemies who sought to make a name for themselves by taking down the legendary Deathwind. As the West became more civilized, the world of Deathwind began to shrink. Railroads cut through his mountains, towns sprang up in his valleys, and the rule of law, however imperfect, began to replace the rule of the gun. The era of the lone frontiersman, the mountain man, was coming to an end. Deathwind became a relic, a man out of time. He watched as the wild places he called home were tamed, fenced, and divided. His battles became fewer, his purpose less clear. He was a wolf in a world of sheepdogs, a force of nature in an increasingly man-made landscape. So, what happened to Deathwind? The end of his story is as shrouded in mystery as his beginning. There was no final, glorious shootout, no dramatic last stand. One day, he simply vanished. Some say he was finally caught by an enemy's bullet in some forgotten corner of the wilderness. Others believe he was taken by the very nature he so fiercely protected, perhaps in a rockslide or a blizzard, becoming one with the mountains he loved. But the most popular, most romantic theory is that he simply walked away. He saw the world was changing, and he walked deeper into the last remaining pockets of true wilderness, to a place where the modern world could never touch him, living out his days in the solitude that had defined him. The legacy of Deathwind isn't just about his skill with a rifle or his phantom-like presence. It's a story about the end of an era. He represents the untamed spirit of the American frontier, a symbol of rugged individualism, survival, and a fierce, uncompromising freedom. He was a man forged by the harshest of environments, who lived by his own code in a lawless land. While the name Thomas Kane is lost to history, the legend of Deathwind endures a whisper on the wind, a reminder of a time when the West was wild and a single man could become a legend. His story reminds us that beneath the myths and the gunfire of the Old West, there were real people living extraordinary lives, caught between the wilderness they knew and the civilization that was relentlessly coming. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey into the past, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more stories from the forgotten pages of history.